Hello. I'm doing a series called Books from a Candy Dish, where I'm just randomly grabbing one of the titles of one of my books out of a candy dish, and then I'm setting a timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you everything I can think of about that book. And they could be old, new. They could have never. I haven't thought of them for years. But it's just stuff about inspiration and how I wrote it and what I listened to while I was writing it and everything like that. So, okay, we'll see. We'll see what I pull out this time. Okay. Mr. Tip. Ah, the ignominious Mr. Tip. Okay. So, let me set a timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, counting down.
Okay. Mr. Tip. So, first of all, he sort of popped into existence without announcing himself. I was writing short stories for the Pendywick Pair, which is like extra stuff, adventures that Basil Collingwood and had before they were in, they was when they were younger. And Basil happened to run into Mycroft Holmes on the street, or he saw him walking. This is when he was young. He was in college. And he knew him. He had met him before. And so he went and he followed him because he was like, I want to say hello. But then he was curious about where he was going. And he went into this really seedy place. And Basil started to get worried about him. Like, where are you going in this really scary area down this scary alley? And he, of course, he found out that Mycroft can take care of himself. You'll have to read it and find out what exactly happened. But, Mycroft and Basil they went into this place where Mycroft was meeting with an informant. And Mr. Tip just sort of materialized as this informant. And he and Mycroft talked about something that made no sense to Basil, and really no sense to me either. I don't really know what they were talking about. It's very obscure. And they talked in code, and it was just about the case that Mycroft was working on, and Mr. Tip sort of had his ear to the ground. But he was very much inspired by, he's an American, and if you've seen the movie Tombstone, the character of Doc Holliday in that movie, I thought was just a really interesting portrayal. And so I thought, okay, let's kind of make him like that guy for this brief little vignette. But as soon as I finished that, I was like, I have got to come back to this guy someday because he's just too interesting. And then, after writing Taylor of Seminoff, I was like, okay, I need something that is fast-paced and familiar territory, and I can just kind of plunge in there and get going. And then I was like, oh yeah, there's that Mr. Tip. And Mycroft had said some things about him to Basil, like that he was a disgraced detective, how he was brilliant, all these things, but he's fallen from grace. And he's now an opium addict. But then I was like, well, why? What happened to him? And what is going on? So I decided to, rather than have it be from his point of view, because that's never as interesting, I decided to have someone outside bring him a problem that then will pull him out of. At first, I was thinking it might be an assistant of his. Excuse me. But then I was like, no. It needs to be somebody who Like if he made a mistake on a case, well, then it needs to be somebody related to that case. And here's the thing about mysteries, especially murder mysteries. When you are watching them or reading them, you are like, oh, this has to be so hard to write, because it's so complicated and so convoluted. Well, you're looking at it from the wrong angle. You're looking at it from the angle of the person who's trying to figure it out, the detective. And of course it looks really hard and complicated because they don't know what happened. But the mystery is easy. Here's what you do. Okay? This isn't hard. You start with the crime. And the criminal, you start with the bad guy. You start with the bad guy and what he did, and then how he covered it up. And then you just start with your ignorant people and throw them at the problem. And of course, they're not going to know what's going on because they don't know what's going on. So they're going to come to wrong conclusions. They're going to be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So of course, like a normal person. But you, as the author, you know what happened. So you just have to bring those people slowly towards the truth. So, for example, in Murder on the Orient Express, well, it's very simple. All these people who hated this guy got together on a train and took turns stabbing him in the middle of the night. Because not one of them wanted to be singularly responsible for the murder, but they all wanted him dead. See, that's simple. But it's not simple when you just, you obscure it with all of their attempts to hide it, and then you put someone who doesn't know anything in there, and then they have to figure it out. It's like, it's bizarre. It's like, what? How can this doesn't make any sense. Of course not. Because from Poirot's perspective, he's used to one, maybe two murderers, not, I don't know how many there were, seven or eight people. So that's what you do. If you're writing a mystery, you start with the crime, and then you introduce your people with like one little clue. You give them one little clue, and the reason to chase it, and then you've got a story. And of course, it also needs to be the getting into it has to be revealing of character. They have to have an arc then. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I searching for this? What do I need out of this? For our main character, the girl, Lucinda, what she wants is justice for her father. Because to her, the murder seems senseless, but she's convinced that it isn't. And also the killer has gotten away. And so she's like, no, this is not okay. This dude has gotten away with killing my dad and then like several other people, and he's a crazy person. So we need to get him. And then for Mr. Tip, Valentine Tip, he needs to be redeemed because this villain outfoxed him and destroyed his life. And destroyed his reputation, destroyed everything. He didn't even think he can go home to America. He feels so disgraced. So he's just holed up in some pit in London's East End, and it's horrid. So he might as well be dead. So solving this case, even though these two are polar opposites, first brings them both together because inwardly they both have a great sense of integrity, both of them, and good character, and both of them are made of something very fine and very noble. But Lucinda has become hard and kind of calloused and cynical throughout life, and then he has also become cynical and mistrustful, and also he just hates himself. So so the two of them, that's what's interesting is bringing them in that arc. So I told you that he looks wise. I was inspired by Doc Holliday in Tombstone, and for her, I don't know if there's anyone more beautiful than Kate Winslet in Titanic. She's just perfect. She looks like a painting. In every shot, she's just so beautiful with that red hair, and she's so polished and poised, in those costumes. I know they're a little later. You know, Titanic took place in 1912, and this takes place earlier in Victorian times. But that sort of, and the way she speaks and everything, that sort of person is what I kind of started with Lucinda. Of course, Lucinda is not Rose from the Titanic, but just that flavor of person, just that image of this flawlessly beautiful woman who has allowed herself to get very proud and aloof so that she's shielding herself from any kind of attachment or love or affection except for the safe people like her mom. Like, it's literally all, I think. And even then, she feels like a caretaker to her mother because her mom's very, just kind of an innocent, sort of a naive person, not very clever, just a sweet person. And so Lucinda's very smart. And so she's having to take care of mom and the house and everything like that. And she has the kind of the weight of the world on her shoulders since her dad died. And she has no one to help her. And so Mr. Tip kind of becomes an unexpected help to her in that regard. And little does she know is that he really needs somebody to need him to extend that sort of opportunity. My other cat is coming. Pocky, what do you want? You gonna come around? No, she's just gonna knock things over. So anyway, I will put the link to that one down there. Check that one out if you haven't yet. It is a twisty, windy mystery that goes all around through London and then even out into the country to a huge mansion that's full of more secrets. So you'll love it. You'll love it. It's not nearly as long as some of my others, not like Semenov. So it's a good length. You can get into it and you'll like it.